we really debating the morality of murder?
Hi. I was originally gonna do like a Barry morality of murder about both series 1 and 2, but I've got like zero storage on my phone and this video is already gonna be very long, so I figured I'd just talk about season 1. I might do one about season 2 at a later stage, but for now I'm just gonna be talking about season 1 and kind of like why Barry is the way he is and his mentality behind killing people. Enjoy. Today I want to talk about a TV show called Barry. Bazza. It's basically a TV show about a hitman who moves to LA and he wants to become an actor, but of course he can't escape the hitman life. So this whole video, I guess, is gonna be about like the morality of like the murders that the main character Barry kind of performs in the show and like whether he was manipulated into doing them or like threatened or what have you. Let's jump into it. First I want to like talk about the intro of the show, I guess. The opening shot is, it just like focuses on Barry and he has a gun in his hand, and then it like the camera pans to a man who's been shot dead in a motel. So Barry's just like chilling with a dead guy, I guess. And this just like sets up the mood for the entire TV show. Like, you know, it's not gonna be like James Bond type hitman life where he's like living the high life and everything. Like, this is gonna be gritty and dark, and we get that feeling straight away. And then we get a montage of Barry and him coming home to Cleveland, and he's on the middle seat in economy, which is the worst place to sit. And then he comes home to his tiny ass apartment. It's essentially a kitchen with a bed. It's tiny. Above Barry's bed is a Metallica poster, so you know that this dude is one angsty boy. I hate myself already. The montage continues and he's playing, I assume it's Grand Theft Auto, and he's just like playing it mindlessly, bleak expression, etc. This just lets us know that the hitman life isn't glamorous and that he just is very dissatisfied with his life. Oh, I forgot to mention that in the montage it shows photos of Barry in the military, so this like grounds the show in reality, which I think is really cool because there's a bit more of like an understanding into his character and like how he can like kill so easily because he's had training. Like, that was his job once upon a time. We then introduced to Fuchs, who's like Barry's kind of like business partner, I guess. Like, he's the one that sets up the hits, and he tells Barry that a Chechen mob in LA needs him for a hit because they need a hit to be done by someone outside the crime family. So Barry goes to LA, meets up with this crime family, and they tell him to kill a guy by the name of Ryan because Ryan has been having an affair with the mob leader Goron's wife. So they obviously want him dead. Barry agrees to it and he follows Ryan around, and this leads to an acting class, and Barry is intrigued. He goes inside, ends up befriending Ryan, they do a scene together, and then Barry realizes that he actually likes this class and he wants to stay. After Barry like meets with Ryan and realizes that he's a good guy, he tells Fuchs that he doesn't want to kill him because, I mean, Barry's only used to killing like bad guys, like the worst of the worst. That's why he became a hitman essentially. And this makes Fuchs really mad because Fuchs is a manipulative asshole, which I'll get into. Barry tries to explain himself out and says, I don't want to do this. Like, I only kill bad guys. Ryan's not a bad guy. And then Fuchs just like looks at him like dead, like sharply, and just says, stop thinking, kill Ryan. This fucking guy. I hate Fuchs. He's the worst. Later on, Barry goes to the acting studio and the acting teacher, played by Henry Winkler, you know, Fonzie and everything. That just made me really happy that Henry Winkler's in it because he's amazing. Like, obviously loved him as the Fonz and in Royal Pains, and seeing him like in this show just makes it so much better. So much better. So goes up to, what's his name? Goes up to Gene and asks him if he thought that he was good enough to be in the class, and Gene says no, you're horrible, essentially, and to go back to whatever you're good at. And then Barry's like, you know what I'm good at? I'm good at killing people, and then gives a whole montage about how he was in the military and that when he got back he was depressed and he felt like he had no purpose, so he became a hitman. And Gene thought that that was just like an improvisation and says that was great, you're welcome to join the class. And now Barry realizes that his dreams of acting could actually happen, which is sick. Later on, Barry goes to Ryan's car because he's been manipulated by Fuchs to kill him. But when he gets there, Ryan's already been shot. And Barry looks up. Across the road is another car with 3 Chechens in it, and one of them is attempting to shoot him, so he kills the shooter and the other 2 people in the car. Hi, so I'm editing this at the moment and I realized that I misspoke in this bit. I said that Barry killed 3 people when in actuality he only shot at the 3 people. 2 of them were killed, including the shooter, but one of them, Hank, who I'm going to talk about later, he survives. Okay, back to the video. I feel like that was a situation where it was justified to kill because it was either kill or be killed, and he chose to not be killed. It was self-defense. What else am I saying? After this whole ordeal with the Chechens, Barry decides he doesn't want to be a hitman anymore. And to be honest, I don't think he ever wanted to be a hitman. He was just looking for some way to pay the bills when he came back from Afghanistan because he was no longer being paid to be in the military and kill, etc. So he just continued to do that in civilian life. But now he doesn't want to do that anymore. It isn't until he and Fuchs are kidnapped and Fuchs is tortured and Goran keeps telling him that he has to do a hit on this Bolivian named Paco. Paco is like an informant and giving the Chechens information about this stash house that the Bolivians have and the Chechens want in, and I guess that they want to kill Paco because they don't want him to tell the Bolivians that he's been giving them information. And it isn't until Fuchs is being tortured that Barry agrees to do it because he doesn't want Fuchs to die. Good guy. But Barry tells them that this will be the last time that he ever does a hit for them because he wants out. He doesn't want to be part of this lifestyle anymore. A couple days later, Fuchs is still being held hostage at Goran's garage, and he convinces Goran to let Barry do a raid at the stash house and take out everyone inside so then the Chechens can have it, mainly so then he can not be kidnapped anymore, and also so then he has this hold on Barry because without Barry, Fuchs doesn't have a job, essentially. Meanwhile, Barry has taken this woman named Sally, who's in the acting class, to an audition. She's a very ambitious actress. She's very good. The actress that plays her, Sarah Goldberg, very good. So yeah, Barry takes Sally to an audition. When he's waiting outside for her to be done, he gets a text from one of the Chechens named Hank, who, by the way, is like the best character in the show. Just so good. He messages him telling him to kill Paco. Unfortunately for Sally, her audition didn't go too well and she just like needs support, and she asks Barry if they want to hang out, but he can't because he has to do this hit. So Barry goes to Paco's house and is like kind of eyeing out Paco from a safe distance, and then Sally calls him and says, are you sure you can't hang out? And then he like gives in and just like says, I'll be there in half an hour. What a good guy, just being there for someone that's had a bad day. nice guy. He ends up killing Paco and then races over to Sally's house. I still don't know if this is because he expected to get laid or if he just wanted to be a good friend. I assume it's the former. The next morning, Sally creates a Facebook page for Barry. And Barry never had a Facebook page because as a hitman you have to stay anonymous, which is like completely contrasting to the acting lifestyle where you have to be like in the spotlight. He Facebook adds one of his old Marine friends named Chris Liccardo, who becomes very important in this series. I'll get into that later. Later on, Fuchs tells Barry about how he convinced Goron to get him to raid a stash house for him. Barry doesn't want to do this, of course, because he doesn't want to be part of this hitman lifestyle anymore, which kind of repeats itself throughout this series, but also because it's not just like a regular hit, like in the very first episode, very first shot, where it's just like him point blank killing one person. Instead, it's a raid, which entails that he's gonna have to kill multiple people, and he doesn't want to do that because that's not what he's used to. That's not his regular job description. So then Barry like stands up for himself and says like, fuck you, I'm not doing this. This is ridiculous. He thought he could just get out of it like that, but no. Fuchs turns up to a party that Barry's at later that night for the acting class. At this party, he orders Barry to do the raid at the stash house. So now Barry's roped in again. Love that for him. At the party, Chris Liccardo shows up and he brings two of his friends that were also in the military. Their names are Taylor and Vaughn. They kind of become important in the show, more so Taylor than Vaughn. I feel like Vaughn's just like a character that's there for the sake of being there. I don't think he's had a single line. Taylor gets a ride home from Barry after the party and finds blueprints for the stash house and tells Barry that he wants in. Taylor has a history with violence and aggression. He was the first Marine to get kicked out of a support group for veterans, and he broke someone's jaw after someone spilt a drink on Chris when they were at a bar one night. So if you remember back to when Barry killed two Chechens in self-defense, the other person in the car was Hank. He survived, thankfully. We love Hank. We love that. Anyway, so a detective by the name of Detective Janice Moss, she comes to the acting class and shows the class a photo that they retrieved that Hank took because he took a lipstick camera to a hit. He's a tech head. What are you gonna do about it? But also, what a stupid thing to do. So now there's like a Bigfoot photo, I guess you could call it. It's like just like a shadowy type person, but it's clear to us that it's Barry because we know that he's the one that was there when Brian was dead or when Brian was murdered. So now Barry's worried that he's been caught and that the acting class are gonna find out and they're gonna think differently of him. Barry is questioned by Detective Moss along with two other people in the class because from the photo they can tell that the shooter is 6'2" and Barry is also 6'2", so they're just trying to rule him out. Barry fakes an alibi so he can avoid being caught, so he writes down the names of the two people he was supposedly with that night, his boss at the sales job he has, and then another dude by the name of Ramon Diaz. And Fuchs poses as these alibis and pretends to be the factory worker and also pretends to be Ramon. So then Barry's in the clear. Goron is also questioned by police because they want to know if he knows the person that got away from the shooting. That person is Hank. Goron then tries to call off the raid, but Fuchs then convinces him to continue on with the raid and let Barry do the raid. Barry is now mad because he didn't want to go along with the raid in the first place, and now he has to do it because Fuchs convinced Goron that it was okay, and Barry doesn't want to be part of this lifestyle anymore. So this poor guy can never catch a break. I just want him to like live a normal life and be happy, you know? I think this just shows that Barry can't make his own decisions. Like Fuchs is like the mastermind behind Barry's decisions. He's like a puppet. No, what's it called? He's like a puppeteer, and Barry's just like the little puppet, just like stringing along, doing whatever Fuchs says because he has no choice. Barry then tells Fuchs about Taylor and how he wants in on the hit. At first, Fuchs is mad, but then he tells Barry that it's okay as long as he kills Taylor afterwards. And of course, Barry doesn't want to do this because Taylor's also a Marine. And Marines can't go killing Marines, like Marine Code or whatever. I watch NCIS, I get it. But like, Fuchs uses the fact that he's a Marine against him and reminds him that when he was in the military, he did what he was told. He killed who he was told to kill, and he just did his job. Fuchs like brainwashes him and says that sometimes you just gotta do your job. And in the Marines, what was Barry's job? Killing. And what's his job now? Killing. Even though he no longer wants part of that. Great. So now they're at the raid and they've killed everyone in the stash house. And Taylor sees that there's a boatload of cash hidden away somewhere. Taylor has his back turned to Barry and is getting all the cash and stuffing it into a duffel bag. And while his back's turned, Barry has a gun at Taylor and he has to decide whether he's gonna kill him or not. He decides to not kill Taylor, but for a second there, he had me. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, they had us the first half, I'm not gonna lie.
Is this the right choice, or is this just gonna cause more issues in the future? Barry and Taylor have found out that a few of the Bolivians, including their leader, they're gonna be flying in to LA on a helicopter into this like open field like thing. It kind of looks like a desert type of situation. They plan to kill the Bolivians because like the Bolivians are most likely gonna want them dead for taking out an entire stash house and killing everyone that was in it. They were obviously their friends. Barry doesn't want to go through with this plan, so he tries to get rid of Taylor. But instead, Taylor gets Chris and Vaughn to help him. Barry tries to get Chris out of the car because Chris has a wife and a son, and Barry knows that some shit's gonna go down and he doesn't want Chris involved because like Chris has a family, he has a life. Meanwhile, Barry can somewhat handle everything he's going through and being a hitman because he doesn't have a family, no wife, no kids, nothing. So if anything goes wrong, everything's just gonna be on him. But with Chris, it's not that simple because now he has a family. So Barry tries to warn Chris, tries to get him out of the car because he knows what's gonna go down. And Chris is like, no, it's fine, like, it's cool, it's chill, like, it's sick. So Tyler is driving in the field, but he's driving like alarmingly fast. Like, he's speeding like crazy. And Barry's like, hey, like, what are you doing? Like, this isn't what we planned, you're going off course, what's going on? But Taylor continues driving, and their car gets shot at. Taylor and Vaughn, they're in the front seat and passenger seat, they are killed instantly. Barry attempts to hide from the Bolivians, but one of them finds him and has a gun pointed at him. The Bolivian gets his radio out and tries to let the other Bolivians know that, hey, someone's here, like. But Barry orders Chris to shoot this guy because Barry knows that if he radios the others, then they're both dead. Chris doesn't want to do this, but he has to because Barry's ordering him to. Chris ends up killing that Bolivian under distress. They end up fleeing the scene. But of course, Chris is riddled with guilt. Even though he was in the military, I think he was in analytics or something like that. Like, he never actually killed anyone. He was in a different part of it. So Chris and Barry end up meeting in Chris's car. Chris wants to go to the police, but Barry... Am I gonna be able to talk about Chris without crying? Because Chris was... He was so good. He was so good. Like, Chris wants to go to the cops, but Barry doesn't want him to because he's scared that the cops are going to find out about Barry and him being a hitman and him being at the crime scene when Brian was killed and him killing the Chechens. Chris tries to tell Barry that he's not gonna say anything to the cops about him, but that's not gonna matter because Chris and Barry are friends on Facebook. So the police are gonna find out about it at one point or another. But Chris is so overwhelmed and so consumed by guilt that he feels like he just like can't keep it to himself. And also, 2 of his friends died. That's gotta be a lot for someone who's never been in that type of situation before to just take it all in. Barry tells Chris about how he's a hitman and that the people he works with are dangerous, and that if Chris ends up going to the police, then they're gonna go after his wife and his child, and Barry just tries to warn him. Chris admits to Barry that when he got home, his wife knew that something was wrong, and that she was eventually gonna find out because he was so consumed with guilt that he was gonna have to talk about it at some point. Barry reminds Chris that he tried to warn him before they went out to the field. He tried to warn him and say, hey, like, get out of the car, like, you don't want to be part of this. But he didn't listen. He thought it was gonna be all good, but it wasn't all good. It's at this point when Chris realizes that he has said too much, that he's revealed too much. Barry gets increasingly angry because Chris still wants to go to the police, and then Chris admits to Barry that Chris originally said at the start of the scene that he told his wife that he was going to the gym, but then now admits that he told her that he was going to see Barry. And Barry is now angry and just sad and distressed because now Barry thinks, oh shit, I have to kill Chris because he is gonna go to the cops if I don't do anything. So then Barry takes Chris's hand and then kills him and makes it look like a suicide. I was so shook when this happened. I wasn't expecting it. Chris didn't deserve to die. I think pretty much everyone else that I've spoken about / will talk about deserved to get killed because it was either like a kill or be killed situation, or they were like bad people that were gonna admit something. But we don't know for sure if Chris was actually gonna say anything, but that's what Barry was thinking. And it hurts more because Chris was Barry's friend. Like, they knew each other. They were close. And now Barry has to live with the fact that he's just killed his friend in cold blood. That night, the acting class are putting on a play for Macbeth. And Barry only has 1 line in it. And so far in this story, he's been a pretty terrible actor, just kind of saying lines as they're written, just like with no kind of like emotion behind it, like not bringing anything, not having any talent, essentially. But because he's so distraught and so traumatized by what he's done, he actually does a really good job. Before they go on stage, Sally tells Barry that there's an agent in the audience that Sally really wants to impress because she wants to be a serious actor and she wants to be represented by someone. And this would be a really great break for her. Sally wants Barry to give her something to work with while she's out there, but Barry isn't paying attention because he's just so distraught and like wrapped up in guilt that he can't focus on anything other than him killing Chris. So when Barry's side stage before going on stage, he's having flashbacks to killing Chris. He starts envisioning how his wife's gonna receive the news of his death and how she's gonna have to break the news to their son. He can like hear a phone ringing, and Chris's wife Sharon picks up the phone and is like, hello, and then Barry like puts his hand up and he's like, hi, like it's genius, it's freaky.
Brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular, never the same, totally unique, completely not ever been done before, unafraid to reference or not reference, put it in a blender, shit on it, vomit on it, eat it, give birth to it.
He imagines the funeral and like how they'd react at the funeral. He tells himself to stop and like snap out of it, and he starts like violently shaking the table next to him due to all the anger that he's feeling. He then realizes that it's his cue to go up on stage. There's a camera angle where it just kind of like, it's kind of from Barry's like perspective, where the camera just like kind of like zooms and like pans to Sally, and it's like she's looking into the camera, but it's like she's looking at Barry, and she just looks like very confused and sad because Barry's on stage and he's crying because of Chris. Because like, yeah, he's crying, and Sally is just very confused. She's like, what's going on? Barry then delivers his line, still crying. His line is, "My lord, the queen is dead." How fitting for the show, because I mean, he's not talking about whoever the fuck he's referencing in Macbeth. I didn't pay attention in English class. Who did? He's obviously talking about Chris and how he's dead, and that's why he's crying, not because of some character in a play. He don't give a shit about them. What a fucking metaphor. I love that. I love that. Sally then starts to like tear up a little bit, most likely for real, because afterwards she tells Barry that his performance was so good that she didn't even have to act. And this is also shown when, because like before Barry like delivered that line, she was speaking in a British accent because, you know, Macbeth, Shakespeare, those plays are usually delivered in a British accent. But then after Barry delivers that line, she starts speaking in an American accent, or if you want to get into semantics, a Canadian accent, because Sarah Goldberg is Canadian. American, Canadian, what have you. Yeah, American, Canadian, doesn't matter. She goes to her normal accent instead of a performed British accent. This then gains the attention of the agent because her performance is then so compelling that he's really interested in her, and he's been on his phone the entire performance, but then when she starts delivering her last words, he looks up from his phone. And Sally is so grateful to Barry because if it wasn't for his performance, she probably never would have gotten the attention of that agent, and she ended up getting signed, which is sick. I love that for her. But this video isn't about her. I'll probably do another video about her at some point because there's a lot to dissect. After the show, she thanks Barry for his impeccable performance because it helped her with her career. She then tells him that whatever he had to do to get to that place, that's his process. He has to do that every time. We know that he can't do that because that would mean he'd have to literally fucking murder someone before every performance. But she doesn't know this. She's just trying to be a supportive friend. But poor Barry's now thinking, oh shit, I'm gonna have to kill someone. I'm gonna have to kill my best friend before any performance I do. The next day, Barry tells Fuchs that he's done with him. For real this time, because he doesn't want anything to do with being a hitman and the lifestyle that comes with it. And I'm sure this had everything to do with what he had to do to Chris. Fuchs then goes over to Goran's house and ends up getting kidnapped, and it looks like he's about to get murdered. Goran is like a meter away from Fuchs and goes to shoot him. But then he misses because Goran's been shot by Barry. We love that. Barry then also shoots the rest of the Chechens. He killed them to save Fuchs, even though he was mad at Fuchs. He didn't want him to die. In the shot where like Goran goes to shoot Fuchs and then misses because Barry shot him in the back of the head, when I first watched it, I thought that Goran was so bad at shooting that he somehow accidentally shot himself in the back of the head. How much of a fucking dumbass am I? Again, this was a situation where it was a situation where it was either kill or be killed, but in this case it was either Fuchs gets killed or Fuchs lives. Like I said before, Barry is still mad at Fuchs. After Barry saves Fuchs from getting murdered, he takes him straight to the airport and says, I'm done with you. I don't want anything to do with you anymore. Go back to Cleveland. I don't want to see you anymore. He's finally standing up for himself and realizing that Fuchs has been a bad influence on him. He's realized that he's been manipulated by Fuchs into being a cold-blooded killer ever since he left the Marines. Some time has passed. I don't know how much time has passed, I'm guessing about a week or so. Barry, Sally, Jean, and Detective Moss are at Jean's lake house because Sally and Barry are gonna perform a play called The Front Page. Inside Jean's cabin, there's a poster of like Sally and Barry, and Moss notices this, and I probably should have like said earlier that Barry's name is Barry Berkman, but then when he joins this acting class, he changes it to Barry Block. And Detective Moss, when she was trying to find out more information about Barry, she went on Facebook and typed in Barry Berkman, and he wasn't on Facebook. So she just ended up like stopping looking for him and just kind of moved on with her life. But when she notices that his name is Barry Block on the poster, like things start like spinning around in her head that, oh, maybe I didn't look deep enough. And later that night, they're all having dinner together, the four of them, and Jean ends up telling Sally and Moss that when Barry first came to the class, he improvised a piece about a Marine turned hitman. And this piques Moss's interest because she knows about the Chechens and she knows that they're hitmen, but she didn't know that Barry was a hitman. She just thought he was like a former Marine and that he was a stand-up citizen. Oh, I forgot to mention that Moss and Jean, and now they're dating. And when Jean tells Moss about this, he then starts getting really nervous and thinking like, oh shit, I've been compromised, like my cover's been blown, she knows. Moss changes the subject and starts talking to Sally and asking her if she would like to go on a ride along with her, and they're just like talking back and forth about why Sally wants to go, etc. But the camera focuses on Barry and he starts drinking to show how nervous he is because he's worried he's been found out. Later on that night, it's the middle of the night, everyone's sleeping. Moss goes to the lake to get some privacy. She goes on Facebook and searches up Barry Block, and sure enough, Barry's on Facebook. And she comes across a photo of Chris and Taylor and realizes that Barry was friends with both of them and that he was the one that killed the Chechens. He's the one that's in the Bigfoot photo. Barry comes up behind her and tries to explain himself out and says like, please don't arrest me, like I've changed. I used to work for some bad people, but I'm not like that anymore. But Moss ain't having any of it, which I understand, you know, the law's the law. She's just trying to do her job. She's spent a long time on this case, spent a lot of effort trying to track down the killer, and now he's right in front of her. Barry's unarmed, and Moss says, okay, I'm gonna take you to the cabin now, and I'm gonna arrest you there. They start walking slowly to the cabin. The camera then focuses on Barry, and then it like kind of pans out, and behind a tree, a gun is taped behind it. Barry looks at the gun with tears in his eyes and begs Moss, please don't do this. And she says, no, I can't do that. They continue walking, and Barry takes the gun from behind the tree and shoots her. He thought that this was necessary because he needed to protect his identity. He didn't want to kill her, but he had to avoid going to jail. Overall, I think that Barry only murders like bad guys and bad people. He only kills if he's being shot at or if he thinks that his identity's been compromised. The only time I actually disagreed with him killing was when he killed Chris, because that was like his friend, that was someone he was close with, and I think that Chris was close enough to Barry that he wouldn't have gone to the police after all, because he was like kind of threatened by Barry, saying that like, hey, the people I work with, they're gonna find out and they're gonna take care of you and they're gonna like hurt the people you love. So I don't think he would have actually gone through with going to the police, but with everyone else, I think that murder was justified. Yeah, thanks for watching. Give it a like if you liked it, give it a dislike if you disliked it. Stay safe and have a good day. Bye.